Joining me now is former Vice President Mike Pence. There's Mr. Pence. Hello, sir. How are you? Thank you for coming back on.
You bet, Larry. Good to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
So listen, just on this little spat, I mean, President Biden wants the oil companies to refine more oil into gasoline. But at the same time, he's closing refineries. And we haven't built a new refinery in some 40 years. Now, I don't get this. Mike Summers of the API, as I mentioned, you know, those guys say, look, yeah, COVID may have been a problem. But basically, it's regulations, restrictions, and various incentives not to refine. So who's right and who's wrong here, sir?
Well, Joe Biden is wrong, and it would be right to unleash American energy and take the boot heel of the federal government off the neck of American energy companies. Look, I just spoke today, Larry, here at the University Club of Chicago, focusing on the economy, focusing on a pathway forward. But there's no question that what's unique about this economic crisis that we're facing, inflation at a 40-year high, gasoline prices up 75%, shortages, supply chain challenges, is what's unique about this, like I tell an economist like you anything, but to your viewers, different from the Depression, different from the economic downturn in the 70s, different from the Great Recession of 2008. All of this is a man-made economic crisis with 100% of the blame going to President Joe Biden and the radical left Democrats driving policies in the Congress of the United States.
To the extent that our friend Mark Short would dare show me an early draft of your speech, I do notice that you took John Kerry to the woodshed. I guess Mr. Kerry's latest incarnation is he's the climate czar. But Kerry and some others are pushing this idea that no loans and no financing can go to fossil fuel companies. Right. This in an administration which pledges to end fossil fuels forever. So, coming back to the issue of refineries, if they can't get a permit and they can't get financing, then how in the world can anybody expand refineries, supply more gasoline, and lower the price? I don't get this.
That's right. Yeah, I said today here in Chicago, John Kerry and a cabal of bureaucrats have literally been bullying banks, telling them not to lend money for energy exploration and production to American energy companies. The irony of which, of course, is they're continuing to try and restart the Iran nuclear deal, which apparently would allow us to buy oil from Iran if they signed it into law. And I'm also told they sent an emissary to the dictator Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela, ostensibly to expand energy production. But I was in Ohio just last week when you talk about refineries earlier, Larry, and I met with all these great energy leaders there. You know, I graduated from high school in 1977. That was the last year that we built a refinery in the United States. And all these producers told me the only thing that is happening is that refineries are being built in other countries that don't have the safeguards for the environment or for employees that we have in this country. So it isn't that the production and the investment isn't happening. It's just not happening in the United States of America. And Americans are paying the price at the pump. But as you know better than most, that those gasoline prices are driving inflation. They're impacting the cost of everything that we are buying, all the goods and services across this country. So the very beginning of turning this economy around is to end the war on energy. And I called on President Biden to do that today here at the University Club in Chicago.
So let's step back for a minute. We've got a major recession threat. We may be in a recession. We may be on the front end of a recession, whatever. Nothing looks very good. We also have a major inflation threat driven by gasoline prices and oil in general. What would, right at the top, sir, what would a President Pence do to solve these problems?
Well, I can tell you that with new Republican leadership in the Congress and a Republican administration in 2 years in the White House, the first thing to do would be to make those Trump-Pence tax cuts permanent. The second thing would be to unleash American energy, open up federal lands to permitting, open up the Alaska National Wildlife Region, begin again Keystone Pipeline, begin to develop the infrastructure necessary to move energy. And on a broad basis, one of the things that drove 7 million new jobs, wages setting records, household incomes setting all new records during the Trump-Pence years was that we cut more federal red tape in our 4 years in office than any administration in history. And so we need to go back to the idea that for every new federal regulation, we need to find 2 that we can repeal. Those are just the beginnings of that. Having free and fair trade deals, negotiating deals that put American workers first. But the last thing we should do, Larry, as you said in your riff, is talk about raising taxes or increasing spending. I mean, which is literally what the administration in behind closed doors is continuing to try and negotiate the opportunity to do. They're not going to build us back better if they get that deal revived. They're going to build us back broke. And the last thing we should ever do with inflation at a 40-year high and Americans feeling real pain at the pump is raise taxes on American businesses, let alone businesses that are creating the very energy that's driving the American economy.
You know, I've been talking on this with our friend Newt Gingrich and Russ Vought and Steve Moore and a number of other people. I mean, I think it's time for the GOP, looking to the future, to start talking about a balanced budget, at least the principle of the balanced budget that would include a domestic spending freeze. You have it in your speech, and I want to ask you, along with the domestic spending freeze, don't we have to have work requirements or work fare? Because too many Americans are being paid not to work. They're getting federal assistance, but they don't have work requirements, which we used to have until about a year and a half ago.
Well, we got to be a nation that lives within our means again. We have to have a responsible pathway toward a balanced federal budget. I called for that today here in Chicago. Our freedom agenda that people can read at advancingamericanfreedom.com describes that. But you know that it's this runaway spending. It was the partisan party line vote that passed a COVID bill a year and a half ago, $1.9 trillion in unnecessary spending that lit the fuse on the inflation that is harming American families today. We got to put our fiscal house in order. There's no question about it. And at the end of the day, I also think that as we see them falter, as we see, as I said today, that the policies, 56% of Americans all believe we're already in a recession. I pray that we're not. But the vast majority of the American people know that the economic policies of the Biden administration has failed. And now is the time for Joe Biden to live up to the oath that he took and promote the general welfare of all of the American people. Turn our country back to the policies that we know will create prosperity for every American. And a balanced federal budget is at the very core of where that begins.
You know, it's so odd, sir. I mean, stuff I don't understand politically. Mr. Biden, who's been around a very long time, so he won't take the blame for any of this. Inflation is Vladimir Putin's problem. Inflation is COVID's problem. Inflation lately is the oil companies' problem. He makes these statements that the Trump-Pence tax cuts, for example, caused massive budget deficits when, in fact, the revenues came pouring in, paid for themselves. The economic success was unmistakable. Just lately, he's blaming oil companies on refiners, but they can't build refiners because of his environmental problem. Have you ever seen a president who refuses to accept blame and, I want to add to that, commits so many falsehoods? I'm being very polite here, calling it falsehoods. Falsehoods, on any given day, he's out there saying stuff that just ain't true. You ever see anything like that?
Never in my lifetime. I said today that there has never been a time in my life where a president was more disconnected from the American people than we see today. Remember a year ago when President Biden literally scolded the American people for not taking the COVID vaccine? Remember he said that he was patient, but his patience was wearing thin. And then he tried to force a mandate on the American people that the Supreme Court threw out. Earlier this year, as I said today, President Biden actually said that it had been a successful year, that he'd exceeded expectations of the American people. Look, this is an administration that is out of touch with what's happening with families. There's one statistic that really jumped out at me, and I mentioned it today, Larry, and that is back in 1980, the average family of four with a single income could pay all their bills, housing, food, groceries, transportation, everything, on 30 weeks of work out of 52. Now, today, in real dollars, it takes all year for families to pay just their bills. That's why so many American families are living paycheck to paycheck. And I have to tell you, here in Chicago, where my mom and dad grew up, where my grandfather immigrated from Ireland, he drove a bus for 40 years, this is a great city. It's all about family, and the reason we got to turn the ship with new leadership on Capitol Hill, new leadership in state houses, and ultimately new leadership in the White House is because we owe the American family an opportunity, just like mine and yours, to live the American dream.
Yeah, well, I hear you. I think it's great. I mean, it just blows me away. This is the last point. Here's my friend Joe Manchin, I don't know, cooking up a deal with Chuck Schumer for a Build Back Smaller with $1.7 trillion in taxes and another $1 trillion in spending. I mean, Joe Manchin was so good, Mike Pence, about saving America and killing the bill. And now I think he just wants to break my heart. I don't really want my heart broken. How can we do this all over again? I just don't get it. How is this possible?
Look, I don't get it either, but I'm going to hope and pray that that Senator Manchin stands solidly where the people of West Virginia are standing. I mean, families are hurting today, Larry. You know that. I know that. I went to my 45th high school reunion last Friday. I talked to a lot of friends that I went to school with that are now parents and grandparents, and they came up to me and talked to me about how much they miss the years of the Trump-Pence administration and how much they know, even where their policies didn't agree with mine, that we got to get back to the policies that we were advancing in those 4 years. That's where West Virginia's at. My hope, my prayer is that Joe Manchin is going to listen to the people that have elected him, to governor, to the Senate, and that he'll reject this Build Back Broke bill one more time and prevent us from going even deeper into the abyss of this socialist welfare vision of Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer.
So as far as Mike Pence is concerned, the night is always darkest before the dawn comes. We're going to stay with that, Mike? That the deal?
That's the deal. The future's always bright. The sun's always rising in America, Larry. We're going to have new leadership come this fall. Come 2 years from now, we're going to get it all back and then some.
Yes, sir. Terrific stuff. The cavalry's coming. Former Vice President Mike Pence and a great friend. Thank you, sir. Terrific stuff. Appreciate it.